For the 21st class, we got into chapter 3, which is entitled Connections and Interactions 1200 to 1450. And right out of the gates, you get hit with a ton of information. So if you missed one or both of the days of class, please check out this video to fill you in what we did. This is definitely a 2-dayer. I could not fit this into one day. That'd be like putting a quart in a pint-sized container. Would not work. So here's a little overview. A lot of Silk Road. Silk Road in religion, the four empires of the Silk Road, a lot about sea routes, piracy, little thought exercise that relates to this. Get introduced to the Srivijaya, monumental architecture. So a lot of cool stuff within these pages, but a lot of stuff. And our opening exercise, I wish for you all. I hope this happens to you in real life. And pretend you have 2 weeks away from work, away from responsibilities, 2 weeks entirely of your own, and you have saved $5,000 for those 2 weeks. And you can bring any of your people along, and they have $5,000. And I said, do whatever you want, but you have to stay along I-75. And there's a reason for this. Now, I have been fortunate to travel the entirety of I-75 from Sault Ste. Marie to the Soo Locks, all the way down to the Florida Keys, to the most southern part of America where Cuba was 90 miles away, and everywhere in between. And when I asked you what you want to do, some people were seeking, making money. It's all about getting that money. Some people were looking for romance. Some people were looking to party. Some people opted not to go on the trip at all and just save all of their money. And some people had a definite target. They said Atlanta the whole time, 2 weeks of Atlanta. No, I'm not going to Atlanta. I want to go to Florida Keys, or some people even wanted to go up north, which I found interesting. Now, moral of the story is, if it's going to be a successful trip, the following things need to happen. There needs to be some traffic laws and law enforcement and infrastructure to keep up the roads. There needs to be gas stations and rest stops. There needs to be a means of currency that you can pay for your stuff. You need to understand which cities and regions are what you're looking for. Okay, if you're looking for trees and quiet, don't go to Cincinnati. You're not going to find it. Some people want to party. Okay, go to Atlanta. Go to Florida. Don't go to Ohio. It's not going to happen. You need a means of navigation. Okay, whether it's a car, a train, a plane. You need to be smart to avoid harm. There are some dangerous places along I-75, and there's some completely safe places, and you have to know where you are. You need reliable transportation. You need to have a motive and reason for travel. So, why am I even bringing this up? Well, this is the modern highway that we travel on, but the Silk Road of a couple thousand years ago, same kind of thing. It connected the world. Okay, or at least the Afro-Eurasian world, from Han China to Rome, Italy, with the Kushan and the Parthian in between. And for the same reasons people travel now, excitement, adventure, money-making, romance, whatever, people were doing the same thing on the Silk Road. So hopefully you got that parallel from class. Now, to drill it home, Professor Benjamin's video will really drill this point home. Excellent, excellent video. It's on Google Classroom. It's here on the PowerPoint. So if you were absent from class, please check that out. I'm not going to play it here. Okay? Now, once we went through the I-75, comparing it to the Silk Road drill, once we heard from Professor Benjamin, we switched into some reading mode, a little bit of a challenging read called Belief Systems Along the Silk Road. So if you were absent, I need you to read that. It's on Google Classroom. And see how it affected these 8 belief systems. Some are familiar to you, some of them are not. Okay, so we annotated the reading in class and we worked together in class. So I'm going to ask you, if you were absent, to annotate this reading and find out all you can about how the Silk Road affected these 8 belief systems. Okay. Now, once we were done with the reading, we pretended we were pirates, and we talked about being a pirate. And there's sports teams, the Las Vegas Raiders. It's hard for me, I'm an older guy. I want to call them the Oakland Raiders, but they're not Oakland. And the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But we were talking about where you would target and what you would be seeking. And in this discussion, we talked about practicality. We talked about the ways the winds blow. It's better to go with the winds than against the winds. Where is the most profitable area? Now, India has gems, and here's their spices, and what are we looking for? Where's the money at? What do we want to target? By the way, if you're going to be a pirate, you need to be tougher than the other person. Who would be somebody you would be a little more willing to mess with because there wouldn't be repercussions compared to, you know, um, awakening the bear, where there's going to be some pretty heavy revenge. So through this, the point is these ocean trade routes, okay, to what the Silk Road was to Afro-Eurasia from Han China to Rome, these sea routes had the same effects, just like that analogy on I-75, where there was money being made, ideas being exchanged, love, hate, um, you know, all the ways human beings interact today, they interacted then. But again, the more we mix as human beings, the more things change. This is called cultural diffusion, an essential historical concept, okay? And we also learned about these monumental structures, and we learned about what purpose do they serve. So what they can do is a couple things. They can show the grandeur of your religion. It can show the grandeur of state. It can show what people are capable of. It's kind of a flexing of a muscle of your advancement. It can be used for a lot of different things, but human beings have created monumental structures for a very, very long time in class, all the way back to the pyramids of Giza and the seven wonders of the ancient world. Even on Easter Island, those big stone monuments on Easter Island, or the Olmec, making these enormous stone heads. So human beings have always done this, and we discussed that in class, which relates to 117 if you were absent. And the main takeaways, whether you were watching this as an absent student or you were in class, hopefully you got this. Now, even though your exam is based on 1200 to the present, you cannot take the Silk Road out of the historical story. Even though it was a couple thousand years ago, this was the catalyst for hemispheric interactions. This gave Afro-Eurasia this advantage that they've had, you could argue, throughout human history. Certainly before Columbus arrived and unified the four world zones. We talked about these four major empires that grew from the Silk Road, or at least expanded because of the Silk Road, and Rome and Han China and the Kushan and the Parthians, the middlemen. We talked about the economic middlemen of history and why it's important. The Afro-Eurasian advantage, again, with the four world zones, Afro-Eurasia had an advantage, the other three did not. Sea routes were the maritime version of the Silk Road with similar effects, with this increased hemispheric interaction, with this increased cultural diffusion. And the last point that we learned about with the Srivijaya, and again, if you were absent, please check out their story on page 116. What we see in Srivijaya as one example is this mix where commerce, money-making pursuits, if commerce is a fancy, unfamiliar word to you, state building, establishing an explicit, strong government, and religion were a mix that occurred often during 1200 and 1450. Oftentimes blending together to a point it was hard to separate one for the other. But again, if you think about it, if I'm going to develop my means of making money, if I'm going to develop my means of governance, if I'm going to build up my means of spreading my religion, strengthening my religion, similar steps needed to be taken, and they are all of a pretty complex nature. So when you have three distinct pursuits at the same time happening, what we're seeing is this complexity, this acceleration that we are still seeing today. Okay, so that was these were the main takeaways from the last 2 days. And again, if you were absent, please put your nose into the book and listen to that Professor Benjamin video and do the reading, and you should be with the rest of the class. So thank you for watching.